If you think the Rocket Mortgage was a blast, just wait till the John Deere Classic. Fairway to heaven. We're breaking it all down. We're live in 30 seconds. And a very good evening, everybody, and welcome all to Fairway to Heaven right here on Edge of Philly Sports. We are live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, wherever you are watching, you know the drill. Smash that like button, subscribe button, follow button, whatever buttons you can to get the word out and get as many people into watching this show as possible. I greatly appreciate it, and it's free to do, so please do that. I'm your host every single week here, Phil Stiefel. You can find me at Bearded Knowledge. As always, back because he's got power. Jason Sullivan sitting next to me and joining us again for the first time since the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Rashad, good evening, gentlemen. How are we doing today?
Great. It's great to be back. Been enjoying the show from afar for the last few weeks, but hopefully I can come back and bring some winners back to the show.
We definitely need winners on the show. At least I do, Jason.
It's true story. No, it's like you said in the little intro, like, we thought last week was bad for the field. This field, so it's shallower field, and it's not very top heavy either. So,
but you know what, Jason? Rashad and I were speaking before you joined the private chat in the back there before the show, and you know what? There's still money to be made. There's still work to be done, and sometimes these lighter fields, they're kind of a little bit more fun to watch. You know what I mean? They're just you're not going into these events like freaking out and like on the edge of your seat. You're probably not investing as much of your bankroll this week as you normally do. So it's fun. Like last week on Sunday, I was just sitting there. I wasn't sweating any outrights because none of my picks had any chance. I was slightly sweating some lineups, but I didn't care. You know what I mean? I was just enjoying golf and enjoying watching the guys play. Do either of you guys feel that way, that sometimes these lesser events you can just enjoy the golf a little bit more?
Not last week I didn't, because I had Batea killing me down the stretch. I think I texted you like on like his 7th hole. I'm like, can we make a birdie at some point, for God's sakes? And he didn't. He made all pars, and then until it counted, and then he made a bogey. So yeah, that was brutal for me. No, I agree with your sentiment though. I think the other thing is too, I think a lot of people, there's like people taking breaks from shows. Like people aren't doing the shows. People aren't diving in as much. Like you said, the money's the same color still. So we're gonna keep going after the money this week.
Yeah. That's all. And you know what? Sometimes because so many people aren't paying attention, there aren't as many shows. If you pay attention and keep going with your grind every week, you can actually make some money these weeks, Rashad, because the casuals aren't putting the work in. They're not listening to 40 podcasts because there aren't 40 podcasts this week. So if you pay attention, know what you're doing, you probably have a leg up over the competition this week, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My best 2 weeks, the last 2 years, have both been the Mexico Open, which is arguably one of the worst non-opposite field events field-wise of the season. And it's just like you said. I mean, if you can get a good pool in an event like that, where not many of the high-level DFS players are playing at least as much or as invested. And you're not going to get as many of the casuals who kind of just wait for the Masters, to kind of jump in, or one of the first elevated events. It's a great, spot to jump on. And I think that this kind of lull in between the U.S. Open and the Open Championship, where everybody, especially after the stretch of events that we had going into the all the way to the Travelers, this is a great stretch, like you said, where you kind of get the lag of the players that don't play as seriously as some of us do. We can kind of take advantage of that.
And also the golfers play in this field. I mean, there's a few good golfers. What's there, like 7 top 40 or 50 golfers, something like that in the field now that Cantley's out of the field. But outside of those top guys, there's a lot of good golfers. And this is a week for guys to earn their card. This is a week for guys to get into elevated events next year. Right. This is a place for guys to pad their FedEx Cup standings if they're on the outside. The golfers themselves there's a lot on the line for these guys because they don't have Scottie Scheffler. They don't have, the big names in the field this week. So while the pressure's off for us, there's still plenty on the line for these golfers, right?
I think so, for sure. I think, so this event used to be the week before the Open. Now it's 2 weeks before. But, I mean, the stakes are just as high. Like you said, you could still get a trip to the Open. I mean, you could still qualify for the Open. There's a lot to play for. And, this – it kind of has almost like a fall swing vibe, with the field. It's a lot of younger guys that are pretty talented. I mean, it seems like a lot of these amateurs and guys that just recently turned pro are super talented guys. So it's cool to watch some of those guys and see. I mean, we saw a couple in contention last week, but it's fun for me to see these up and comers.
Yeah, and some of these guys, you've got guys like Aaron Rye, who has been a lot. There's a lot of guys that in a deeper field don't have a chance, but in this field, like Aaron Rye can get his first win. One of these young kids like Dunlop or Clanton or Shipley, they can get their first win. There's a lot of guys. There's a lot on for this week. Someone like Harry Higgs, who has won multiple times on the Korn Ferry Tour, who probably will be on the PGA Tour again next season.
Yeah.
He goes out there and wins this event this week, which he's won on the Korn Ferry, different tour, but he could. It's a big deal. And Jason, like you said, you win this week, you're in the Open Championship. I just read an hour ago that Sergio Garcia failed to qualify for the Open Championship, which is fantastic, and I love to see it. Probably my least favorite live golfer right now, probably. Which I never thought I'd say about Sergio, but he is. Go out and win this event. You're in the Open Championship in 2 weeks, so it's really important to still pay attention. Really important for these golfers, and if we want change to happen on the PGA Tour, maybe if we pay more attention as fans to these weeks, maybe it'll help the game, give a little boost to some of these weaker fields and weaker weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Sergio, he failed to qualify in the most Sergio Garcia way possible. I don't know if you've read the story behind it, but he was complaining about that the galleries were too big and that they couldn't concentrate, and which is typical Sergio behavior there. But
he was rushed too.
It's always someone else's fault, never Sergio's
always
fault,
somebody
right?
else's fault. Yep. So that's great. But yeah, speaking to what you said, a lot of that's another great thing about this summer swing is that there are a lot of young players. It's just this is when we started to see Ludwig last year. You got Thor Bjornsson here. You got the Florida State kid Clanton here. Obviously, Neil Shipley's had a great season. He's kind of been the Sam Bennett of this year. And then it's good to see Harry Higgs back on the tour. I hope that he keeps his card because I think he's kind of a character that the tour needs. With his personality. It's good to see him playing good golf again.
I either read that he already has, because of his 2 Korn Ferry Tour wins, secured his card or maybe a partial card for next, something like that. He's guaranteed some events next year on the PGA Tour. But if he goes out and wins this week, then it's locked up.
You win 2 Korn Ferry Tour events, you're going to get in on points just by sheer points. And I think he has another top 5. If I'm not mistaken, I think he has another top 5 in addition to that. Yeah, I mean, he's going to probably be in the top 5 in points at the end of the season, regardless of what he does for the rest of the season.
Real quick, before we get into this week's event a little bit more, I just want to touch on again, because Rashad, it's been a little while since we've had you on the show.
Sure.
But also, Jason, we've talked about this a lot with the elevated events, and they're all over basically. And now you've got, outside of the Scottish Open and the Open Championship, you've got from last week until the FedEx Cup playoffs start, a very, very weak schedule when it comes to tournaments. And this is a perfect example how the PGA Tour needs to do a better job, like last week, this week, after the Open Championship in 2 weeks, do a better job of arranging their schedules or picking which events. And it's something I thought about recently, and I haven't brought it up on a show yet. Should there be a rotation on which events are designated the elevated events each year? So 1 year it's the Memorial, the next year it's the John Deere Classic, the next year it's the Barracuda Open, whatever. I'm just making up names here and all. But do you think maybe the PGA Tour should consider that to, maybe help some of these other sponsors get a little boost, help some of these other cities get a little boost? I don't know. Rashad, I see you shaking your head there. Thoughts on that random idea?
Yeah, well, when they introduced this idea, they actually proposed that was what was going to happen. And, and what really, I think, sparked it, at least in this past off season, was the turnout at the Pebble Beach event. Everybody was saying that, Pebble Beach is one of the most iconic golf courses in the world, one of the most iconic events on tour. And if I remember correctly, because it was sandwiched in between Farmers and Waste Management, or two other, maybe it was Genesis and Waste Management. But because of its spot on the schedule, almost nobody played it except for Spieth, I think. And so, there was talk of, when we do these, we'll have the 4 fixtures. We'll have Genesis, Bay Hill, Players, etc., and Memorial, and then kind of move the other ones around so that some of these other events, would get that opportunity. And I think the fans are the ones that absolutely would benefit from this. I mean, the event like we had last week of Detroit would be, Detroit's always been a good golf town. When they had the Buick tournaments back in the day, it would be great to see, the big names at a tournament like Detroit. Same thing with the event this week. John Deere is one of the longest running events on the tour schedule. Be great to see, Scheffler and these guys, play them as stars as opposed to playing them when they're up and comers. I think the biggest event that would probably benefit the most from it is what used to be the Honda Classic. Obviously that would mean 5 events in Florida, and they probably don't want to do that. But I think that event has long suffered at its place in the schedule, and would benefit greatly from elevated event status. So I think I think it would be great for them to try to move them around and try to get some of these smaller market events some good run.
Jason, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I feel like the PGA doesn't know what to do. I feel like they came out a couple years ago and they said, okay, every golfer has to play each event one time every whatever it was, 6 years.
Right.
I forget what the exact number was, but so they came out with that, and then it's like, no, let's do these elevated events instead. Well, let's change them to no cut events. It's like I feel like it's like a work in progress, and they don't know which way to go. And I feel like I don't know. I mean, obviously it's probably just venue based, but I don't know what was the hurry to get through the elevated events so fast? It's like we blew through 3 majors in how many of our elevated events in 12 weeks. It's like, why don't we go a little slower and then have something in the summertime? We're in the dog days now, and like you said, I mean, after the Open, the next 2 weeks are going to be good. Scottish, and then the actual Open. But I feel like it's almost like they just went too fast. Now it's like, all right, well, the rest of the year, why is our viewership down? It's like, well, because all the good events already passed.
It's a classic case of the inmates running the asylum, so to speak, because, what other sports league do the players get to pick their schedule, right? So, and the players essentially run the tour. So the reason why we see an elevated event virtually the week before every single major, with the exception of the Masters, is the players want to play their way into form. And, and then of course you have some of these events where they have to they're kind of handcuffed by the calendar about where they can be. So Memorial, Wells Fargo, and I think you're going to see some of these events move around next year. But I would love to see the Canadian Open as an elevated event. I think, obviously Canada's national championship and it's North America, get those guys there. But, Phil, you're a Sixers guy, Joel Embiid can't pick the schedule for the Sixers that year. He doesn't have a vote, right? So I think the problem is the tour leadership, rather than just picking the schedule and telling the guys, okay, these are when the events are going to be, you show up or you don't show up. And if you don't make enough points at the end of the year, you don't hit your 15 events, then you're in trouble. They're letting the players say, well, we don't want you guys to go to live, so what's going to make you guys happy? And then that's where you get these schedules the way they are right now. Obviously, after the Open Championship, the schedule kind of winds down until you get to the playoffs. And obviously, this is another weird year because we have an Olympic event in the middle of it also. So that kind of throws a wrench into things as well and kind of compacts it.
It kind of sucks too because you're not going to see the big name guys like you saw Spieth this week. If Spieth were in good form and playing well right now, you wouldn't see him this week. And I feel like that's why you're not going to see a lot of the big name guys. If they feel like they're in good enough form, you're not going to see them down the stretch. Which I mean, that's where the PGA comes into play.
And I also think, and Rashad, you mentioned tune-ups, making an elevated event. We've had how many times though? We've had an elevated event, a major followed by an elevated event.
Right.
You're not going to get Scottie, Scheffler, or any of the elite showing up to these weaker events because, to an extent, they're burned out. They're overplayed. A lot of the top golfers want to play, 13, 14 events a year out of 25? Mm-hmm. Well, they played 12 of those 14 events in the first 16 weeks of the year. Now they're done. They're basically in the fall swing now, just waiting for the playoffs to start. And it's bad. It's bad for the fans. It's bad for the game. And again, maybe you don't want Detroit Country Club being an elevated event, or this week at TPC Deere Run being maybe the course isn't perfect for an elevated event. So then rearrange the schedule a little bit. That's just the way I look at it. I know you can't have an event in Detroit maybe in February or March because of weather, but there's got to be a way for them to maneuver it. And it's just something I wanted to throw out there, that maybe every year different courses can get put into a player pool or into a pool, and
they basically
randomly select which courses get those elevated events.
They basically want to play 3 weeks on and have a week or two off. So that's what you see. And then obviously you look at situations like Nick Dunlap wins the third event of the year at Amex, and I think this week and last week are the only two non-elevated events he's played since he won the Amex. Yep. So and that's what you get. I think Jake Knapp the same thing. That's what you get when you get these. And I don't think there's anything that's foolproof, but clearly they need to route the scheduling a little bit better to balance the season for the fans. But every decision they're making is player driven, not fan driven. So
absolutely agree with you. So let's talk this week. Obviously, John Deere Classic. What's more American than a John Deere tractor on the 4th of July? For an event like this. So there is that aspect of it. John Deere Classic at TPC Deere Run, a little over 7,200 yard, par 71. From my ideas and my understanding and from years of doing this, it's a ball striking course, and you better make a lot of birdies at this course. Jason, you're the course breakdown expert. What do you know about Deere Run? I mean, it's how far is Silvis, Illinois from where you're at?
I have no idea. 6 or 7 hours, I would imagine.
That far away? Okay. Gotcha.
So, no, I mean, you pretty much nailed it on the head. It's not a very complex course. 79 bunkers, 3 water hazards, not a ton of trouble. You do want to be accurate here, though. I think that's kind of underplayed a little bit this week. You want to be accurate. You want to be strong tee to green, and then you also want your approach game to be spot on, too. So putting's not very predictive at this course. I've kind of looked back and seen. So I think that last week we had a pretty predictive week on putting, and I feel like this week is not like that at all. Someone's going to get hot with the putter. It's just going to be a little bit hard to predict. So I'm going to be really banking on tee to green and approach guys this week.
Rashad, thoughts on the course and what type of golfers, not which ones, but what type best find success at this kind of a course?
Yeah, Jason hit the nail on the head. I think it's ball strikers. Distance helps, but the fairways, it's kind of one of those courses that the fairways are fairly wide, but if you miss them, you're going to be in a world of trouble. They do grow the rough out pretty well here. And so you'll see a kind of a wider range of scores. I mean, you'll see the guys that will shoot 65, 64 on this golf course, and then you'll see the guys that will shoot 75 on this golf course because they're just not hitting the driver well enough. I think you saw it with obviously even going back to last year's event, it came down to the final hole for a few guys, and Cam Young hit it in the trees and had trouble, navigating that. You had Straka that was in line to shoot 59 and had to take on a pin from a bad situation and ended up making a crucial double on the last hole to still win. But I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of that this week. You're going to see a lot of opportunities for birdies. You're also not going to see very many flat fairways in this golf course. A lot of uneven lies. So guys that are able to navigate with their irons out of the fairways is going to be tricky also.
It's a little off topic, but just kind of piggyback what you said about Cam Young. Like, have we seen more of a head case on the tour than Cam Young? I mean, he just looked like a disaster last week. Like, first of all, you broke your best club.
Right.
You broke his driver. What was he on, like the 9th or 10th hole? It's like, you broke your best club. You can't putt at all. Like, he's just like every hole he's coming up short on the putt, and then he's swearing at his golf bag. He's slamming his irons, and it's like, dude, if that guy, I don't know, if there's anybody that needs a sports psychologist, it might be that guy. Like, calm down a little bit, and dude, he's got so much talent, but it's like he's never going to win until he gets his mind straight. It feels like.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of golfers that golf is such a mental sport. It really is. I want to go back to something you said, Jason, and it's really interesting because I agree with how you say putting, what you said about putting. But yet, when it's a birdie fest, you better be hot with the putter that week specifically to get it. So, how do you judge when you're looking at golfers? Are you looking for golfers that have had moments where they've popped with their putter, or are you looking for golfers that are the hottest in the last 2 tournaments they played in with their putter? Because you know me, I don't weigh putting much when I'm doing it. I keep an eye on it. I keep my peripheral, eye on putting, but I don't I don't weigh it, if any, ever in my model making and stuff like that. But so I read Ron Close's thing. I think it was Ron Close. He said 8 of the last 11 winners were in the top 10 or 15 in putting this week, but yet a lot of them weren't good putters.
Right.
So how do you judge putting in a non-putting contest when you still got to putt to make birdies?
It's complex because
I know that was a complex question.
Yeah, right? It's not as easy. So it's not very predictive. But then I'm gonna look at it a little bit deeper. Oh, this guy.
This guy. This guy.
I forgot what I was gonna say now. No, it's hard to predict. So I'm gonna be looking a little bit differently. So I'm not necessarily looking just at putting. I'm actually not weighing putting at all, but I'm gonna look at it. I want guys that are good in 2 areas. Basically, 2 areas out of these 3, being tee to green, approach, and putting. Like, I want guys that stand out in 2 categories. So it doesn't necessarily have to be putting, but if you're putting your approach to 8-10 feet every single time, you can make those putts. And that's the biggest thing. It's like, whereas some guys, the counterpoint to that would be like Denny McCarthy.
Right.
Yeah, the guy's approach game is awful, but he's the best putter in the field. So I want guys that are good in 2 of those categories. I guess that's the long way to say that.
Rashad, anything to add to that? Because again, I'm like Jason. I very rarely put any percent or weight into putting. I just keep it off to the side, look at it the final. But and it's not a putting contest. But when you need to shoot 22 under to win, you better be able to make some birdie putts, right?
Yeah, my feeling. It's funny. When I was doing my full model, I kind of stopped measuring stroke game putting about 6-8 months ago, because at the end of the day, and I've played a lot of golf, the feeling is that I would rather have a guy who's really on approach, who is a baseline putter or better, than rely on somebody, like you said, like Denny McCarthy, who's kind of struggling to get the ball close, but is a really good putter. Because at the end of the day, in a spike round, you're going to get more guys making putts from 10 to 15 feet for birdie than you are the guys making 25 to 30 feet for birdie. So, if I've got guys that are sticking it, it's just a matter of time. You can only hit the ball 15 feet so many times before they start falling. And it's just, but at 25, 30 feet, I mean, you can go a whole week without getting those putts to fall. And that 10 feet makes a big difference. So,
I'll go my whole life without making a 30-foot putt, just so you know. There's literally zero chance of me making a 30-foot putt. Unless you give it to me, I'm not making a 30-foot putt. There's no way. All right, let's look at this week's field, obviously. So, like we said, not an elite field. They've gone back. I don't think DraftKings can make up their mind what to do with pricing. Because last week, I think the top guy was 11-1 or 11-2 last week, and they had a 5K range. This week, top priced person, Cantlay, who withdrew, is 11, and they have a no 10K or 5K range. I don't think DraftKings can figure it out. So with the Patrick Cantlay withdrawal, we obviously have Jordan Spieth, who has won this event, Sepp Straka, who's the defending champion, Sungjae Im, and Aaron Rai. That's your top of the board. And, yeah, you get sticker shock with Aaron Rai, but, he's still in this field one of the more elite golfers. So, Rashad, we'll start with you. In this top range of golfers, who do you like the best and why?
So looking at my stuff, Rai grades out the best. I don't know that I would be willing to go back to him this week. I'm kind of hoping that he gets a little bit of a lag this week so that I can play him next week at the Scottish Open where he's had success. Beyond that, it's Sungjae. I can't in any good conscience play Spieth when I know that he's dealing with an injury, and I don't think that gets talked about enough. I like Straka. He kind of grades out about the same to me as Sungjae, but you look at Sungjae, his last few events, it's either missed the cut or finished in the top 5. And, I would bank that with field strength this week that this is going to be a good week for him. And since he didn't play last week, he's rested. So I think that would be the direction that I would be looking at building my lineups around Sungjae this week.
I love that. I mean, the only missed cuts he's had has been in majors.
Right.
So this being not a major, every other event he's played in the last couple of months has been a top 10. Sungjae Im is it was the first bet I made, followed it up with a top 20 on top of it, and he's in a couple of lineups that I've built so far. Jason, at the top of the board?
The only thing that worries me about Sungjae, and your guys' points are all right for sure, is his approach game just hasn't been that good. That scares me a little bit. It's like that his putter has been bad, which is typical, but his approach game has just been not as good. It's because of the field. I don't feel comfortable playing any. I'm not super pumped to play any of these guys. That's what everybody's going to be going through this week. My thing is I think Rashad's point with Rye is accurate, though. I mean, it's like a guy like him who doesn't have a chance to win very often kind of blew it on Sunday, a little bit. I don't know if this would be the week to go back to him. Like you said, too, I love him next week. So it's one of those like in-between weeks for him. So I'm not thrilled about playing him. Straka, it's like, yeah, I love playing Straka, but like, do I love playing a 10-5 or what is it, 10-1 Straka who's going to be 20% owned? Like, I don't love that either. So I feel like there's a good argument to fade this range altogether, but I feel like a lot of people are going to do that.
I'm just looking at Aaron Rye and everything you guys say, and I like Aaron Rye, graded out well for me. I bet him. I haven't decided whether I'm going to play him. I'm just thinking about the fact they played in the U.S. Open, and then the Rocket Mortgage this week, next week at the Scottish Open, the Open Championship the week after that. Does there come a point where some of these guys, I don't want to say they're distracted, but they're looking ahead. Maybe they're not going to put the pedal to the metal just because of that. Does that come into your guys' minds at all that, look, I got to play 5 weeks in a row. The last 2 of those 5 weeks are the most important of them. Let's just ease off a little bit this week.
I don't think they have that mindset, so I don't worry about that as much. I just worry more so with Rye. If it was Scottie Scheffler or, even any of these like really good golfers, I wouldn't put too much into last week. Like, he came runner up, like he great or whatever. What did he end up finishing 5th or whatever? It's like, but a guy like Rye who doesn't have a chance to win very often, and that last week's course actually didn't fit him all that great. I feel like this week's course fits him better. However, I feel like that's really taxing to go into it with the lead after Saturday and then kind of choke it away a little bit. So,
Phil, what you said is actually the exact sentiment that I used to not play Akshay and Tom Kim last week. I as much as I loved both of them, the thought is that I think these guys might actually be happier if they missed the cut.
Yeah.
And I feel like that might be a situation with some of the guys that we know are in the Open Championship, or at least in the Scottish Open next week, because I believe it's Scottish Open Championship, and then I think the Olympics is the following week or something like that. So these guys are getting ready to go overseas, and some of these guys that played, obviously Travelers and the U.S. Open before, this might be the break week for a guy like that. So I think that, fading Aaron Rye, if you're going to fade him, I think this is probably the week to do it. But it is going to be hard to do.
Yeah, it's very hard in this field to consider fading an Aaron Rye or Sung J M, which means then you've got to find those guys in that 9 and 8K range. Again, not worry about the sticker shock. Top of the 9K range is Mav McNeely. Got a lot. We've already talked about Denny McCarthy a little bit. Killer Keith killed me last week. The Postman. There's a lot of names. Hold on. Sam Stevens is 9K?
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that he was 9K till I just started looking at it just again right there. Holy crap. So we'll dive down to the 9K. If you're fading Ryan and him, probably the better plays in that range, then you got to pick somebody in the 9K. Jason, where are you going to start in the 9K at then?
Davis Thompson. I mean, I feel like everyone's going to start there, but he's just playing some awesome golf. I mean, he was 9th in the U.S. Open, played well last week again. Like, he just seems like a guy that could just destroy this course. So I like him a lot. I want to play Mav. I really do. I feel like he's good on easy courses. He's a birdie maker. He's a good putter. But, like, I'm not going to be comfortable starting a lineup with Mav McNeely. That's the biggest problem. So, like, and then if you put him as your second guy, then you're dipping down really low on the board. So Mav might get squeezed for me just because of his price, basically. But I think Davis Thompson is my favorite, and then Denny McCarthy. The course history here, I think he has 2 top 6s in a row here. So I like that.
But, you say that a lot. You say, I don't feel comfortable starting my lineup with that guy. You use that line a lot. And we just said, negative things about Rye and him and why we should fade probably the 2 best at the top of the board. But then there's no guys that in that 9K range you feel comfortable starting. So, like, don't you, like, feel like you might feel more comfortable starting your lineup with Rye or him, even though we just try to talk ourselves out of it and then skipping those guys? You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to play devil's advocate to that there.
No, it's tricky. I think that's a good point. I think, like, who do you feel more comfortable at starting your lineup with? Like you said, Sanjay or Straka or Rye, or going down to, like, Mav McNeely. Like, I don't have any confidence in Mav McNeely winning a golf tournament. So,
yeah.
This might be the week. Yeah, this might be the week to even go 3 lower 9K guys, and then especially, and a lot will depend on how, as it does every week, how you feel about the bottom of the board.
Right.
If there's guys at the bottom of the board that you're like, yeah, that's a guy that I really want to play, like a Zach Johnson who has a lot of success here, and I know we'll talk about that part of the board later, but it does really allow you to get different at the top of the board depending on how confident you are at the bottom of the board. So for me, I kind of have the opposite of feeling about Matt McNeely. I think the flop lag from last week, including myself who got hurt by him, his underwhelming performance. I think that this is another chance to go back to him and maybe he's figured it out and maybe he's ready to perform. He graded out really well for me. Davis Thompson also is another one, but I feel like he's going to be super popular. So it's just kind of, I think this might almost be the week to just experiment with guys because there's a lot of guys that we don't typically play. Maybe this is the week to just experiment with some guys and just get different because everybody, with the lack of content, which we already talked about, a lot of people are going to pool to the same guys. And, this might be the feeling to almost, instead of talking yourself out of guys, this might be the week to talk yourself into guys.
Okay. I think that's pretty
So
true.
going off that point, what would it take for you guys to be talked into playing Jordan Spieth?
I've already considered it and contemplated it a little bit because I'm not playing 25 lineups. That's the problem. If I was doing my typical 20, 25, 30 lineups, I would definitely have Jordan Spieth at his, what's he at, like 6-7% ownership?
Yeah.
I would definitely have Jordan Spieth in my player pool this week because of his course history.
Yeah, this almost smells the exact same as me fading Patrick Cantlay at the U.S. Open. So there's a good chance, even though I vehemently said I'm not playing Jordan Spieth this week, there is a chance he will sneak into a few of my lineups this week for that very reason.
Yeah, I think that. How about you? Are you gonna convince yourself then to play Jordan Spieth? Jason?
I don't think I can. I kind of want to because of his ownership, but I just see a guy that he's getting off the tee, which is great because the ball's on a tee. I feel like him hitting the ball off the ground.
Exactly. That's exactly.
His wrist is shot, and I feel like his iron game, we've seen it be terrible. He's losing tons of strokes on the green too. That's the most concerning thing for me too, is how bad his putter's been. So I want to play him, I really do, but I just don't think I can do it.
Down into the 8K range, I think there's some fun names you can experiment with. Obviously, you got some of the names that have been new, I guess is the word to use. Nick Dunlop, Luke Clanton, guys like that. You've got Mr. Cut Maker Mark Hubbard in this range. You got Jason's favorite guy, Seamus Power, in this range. Rashad, where would you go in this range then?
The best grade on here for me is Nick Dunlap, which is crazy to think because from the time he won the Amex to basically last month, he was nowhere to be found anywhere. And now all of a sudden I think and it's understandable, right? I mean, he's a 20-year-old kid that, kind of found his way in the winner's circle at a PGA Tour event and had a difficult decision to make and clearly made the right decision. But there was a strong learning curve to getting him to where he is now. But over the last month and a half, he's played really good golf and in some pretty good events. And he, even when he was playing bad golf in the early part of the summer and the later part of the spring, he was still playing good in the bad field events the few that he played in. So I look strongly at Nick Dunlap this week, as a lot of people will. Obviously, Mark Hubbard, I mean, at this point, you just almost have to play him until he misses a cut. And then, probably the first time this year that I'm going to say this name, but Bo Hostler looks pretty tempting at 8,100 too.
I want to touch on Mark Hubbard for a second. And, he hasn't missed a cut. When was his last missed cut? It was
this calendar
last
year.
fall series.
The RSM Classic in November was his last missed cut. Yet he doesn't have any what's his best finish? 25th at the Valero, 26th at the PGA, 4th at the Pebble Beach.
Yeah, he has one.
But outside of that, he hasn't had great finishes.
Right.
His price is up into this mid 8K range. His ownership's only projected around 12-13% right now. At what price point does his making the cut not make it worth playing him? Because at 8,400, whatever he is, you can't hope for a 28th place finish from somebody at that price point. You need someone that's at least got a little bit of a chance to crack the top 20, top 15. But everyone keeps talking about Mark Hubbard. So, Jason, you're shaking your head on that. At what point do you just say, all right, enough's enough? That price is too expensive for what his real ceiling is.
Well, I agree with those points. But having said that, I also weigh course history, I think, more than most people do. And the last 3 years here, T41, T13, T6. So I'm seeing a guy that's getting better every time he plays the course. I feel like if there's a course that he can pop for a top 10, I feel like it's this one. So I'm surprised that his ownership's not higher, but I think it's because of like the point that you just said. Like for most weeks, his upside's like a T25 at best.
I think if he was priced at 7,400 instead of 8,400, that ownership would be pushing 20%. But at 8,400, I love Mark. I bet him top 20. I think there's good value at. He was plus 230 earlier. I can't even read my own. I got to take my glasses off. Plus 230 to finish top 20. I think there's value in that, but for a DFS purpose, I just don't know. Rashad, thoughts on that?
It's interesting to me because I look at that 9K range, and Mark Hubbard has in my model 100% cut rate make, obviously because he hasn't missed a cut, but then everybody else around him is 55%, 57%, 49%, 55%. And so you're looking at Mark Hubbard having almost a 2-to-1 chance of making the cut over these guys, and these guys around him have all missed cuts in the last 3 or 4 weeks, whether U.S. Open or not. But then you go to top 40%, top 20%, top 10%, and they all kill Mark Hubbard's percentages there. So it's almost pretty much the theme of the week. It's boom or bust. Do you take the safe pick, or the guy who's going to make the cut, or do you just take your chances on a guy who may have a higher chance of missing the cut, but has a better boom rate, like a Kevin Yu, who, missed the cut last week, I believe. But you look at his top 10 percentage, and it's like, okay, well, when he makes the cut, he's usually in the conversation. And so I think that's just kind of the theme of the week, is that you kind of have to decide. Do you go with the safe pick, and this might be a week where you have a 6 of 6 where nobody's higher than T30, or you might have a 5 of 6 week where you have a guy in the top 5, and which one of those is going to fare you better this week?
I think too with Hubbard, I think he's almost turned into like last year's version of Steven Yeager. Where there was no, he made a cut every week, but there's no upside at all. And then yet you've seen Yeager kind of get away from that. Now he's missing cuts all the time, which isn't great, but he also won the Houston Open. He has more upside than he used to. And it's like, I wonder if there's something mental to that. If a golfer gets stuck in that, well, I'm just going to make the cut. I'm going to make the cut. Or I don't know. It's interesting. I just wonder with Hubbard, obviously his course history has been better, but we haven't seen him make cuts like this before. Is he still that golfer that finished T6 last year? I don't know. So
he's been different this year. I know that there's been talk about him increasing his distance, which a lot of times when you increase your distance, obviously club head speed leads to a wider dispersion with your misses. So, and he was always a great ball striker, but now that he's kind of gained a little bit of yardage off the tee, he's kind of, the dispersion on his irons has been different. And I think that's why it's leading him to not make as many birdies. And, if things kind of get wayward there, that's where you kind of start to see the middling finishes. Cause I feel like most of the events he makes the cut easily, and then he may backtrack over the weekend a little bit. So yeah, Jason, there might be something to that.
That's a good point too. I think his we're used to seeing his approach game, especially in a field like this, he'd be top 5 in approach. And he's 25th in this field in approach over the last 36. So he's not terrible, but I think that's a good point that Rashad just make. I mean, when you're gaining distance, it's kind of almost taking his biggest weapon, his approach game, and changing it a little bit. So it's maybe that has something to do with it too.
All right, real quick, guys. We're brought to you here on Edge of Philly Sports and Fairway to Heaven by some great sponsors. First and foremost, tickets.com. No hidden fees. Why would you go to any other ticket reseller when you go to you go to other resellers, you see a $50 ticket turn into a $200 ticket with all those fees? No, not at cherrytickets.com. No hidden fees. Price you see is the price you pay. Sports, concert, theater events, whatever you want. Use promo code EOP10 at checkout. Get you an extra 10% off if you need a personal touch. You can give them a call, 610-494-5050. Just make sure you mention EOP and make sure you mention Fairway to Heaven when talking to them. And, of course, our great friends at phillysportstrips.com, the premier travel and tailgating experience company on the East Coast. They got so much going on. Of course, a great trip to Brazil to see our Eagles play the Green Bay Packers week 1, but they also have tailgate experiences like at Citizens Bank Park for a Phillies game. They're taking spring training tickets, deposits right now for next season. You can go down to Miami in September to see our Union play I don't even know who Miami's team is. I don't know their name, but that's that. But also some great Eagles takeover things down to Tampa. Maybe we go hang out with Rashad and go to the Tampa game, at the same time. Not too far from where he's at. Of course, one to Baltimore, Dallas. They got them all over. So make sure you check them out, phillysportstrips.com. Just make sure when you sign up, you mention EOP and Fairway to Heaven, guys. And we're back. Let's get into that 7K range where there's some value. There's always value, no matter which event there is. There's always value. I'm going to throw a couple names out. Ben Griffin, somebody that modeled out really well for me this week. Neil Shipley, another young guy that's, making some waves on the tour. That's kind of in the top half for me. Bottom half, Nate Lashley is somebody that kind of popped a little bit for me. Chandler Phillips, who's a popular name. Rashad, we'll start with you. Names in the 7K range that you like and why.
Well, you mentioned the first one, Ben Griffin. He rated out the best for me in this range. Another one is Andrew Novak. He's kind of a hit or miss guy, but makes almost 3/4 of his cuts, has a pretty good top 10 percentage relative to his made cut percentage. But the one that I think sticks out to me is Adam Schenk. Was in the conversation in this event last year. I think he's in a good spot and at a good price, and maybe he'll be popular. I haven't looked at his ownership yet, but that's another one to me that I think is a good risky play. He's got a little bit below 50% make cut rate for me, but if you're going to get weird this week, then that's maybe go course history with it and see if he can recapture some of that.
Jason, what do you got down in this range here?
Yeah, Schenk. I agree with the Schenk call too. I mean, I think he has like 3 top 6s in the last 4 years, something like that here. So I like him a lot this week too. His ownership's at 7% right now, so I like that. I definitely like that one. Novak, of course. Shipley. I feel like Shipley is. Sorry. Shipley is.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, I butchered it. I read these ads like 6 times a week. Maybe more sometimes. You'd think I'd master them by now.
I was trying to watch your face to see when you read it too, and you didn't do it.
I'm always like the ads are up on the screen, and my hands are just plowing, my papers are going everywhere.
I'm sorry. Shipley's my other one. I just feel like Shipley is. I don't know about going to be a star, but I think he's a really good golfer. So I like Shipley this week.
I know Rashad mentioned Novak, and I do like him. What do you guys think about Chandler Phillips? Because he's a name that you hear a lot of people talking about. He makes cuts sometimes. A weaker field like this is this the type of week that someone like Phillips can maybe make a little push forward to solidifying himself on this tour?
I loved him last week. He didn't really pay off for me, but I played a lot of him last week.
Yeah, I did too. I played a lot of him this last week. I played a lot of him at Valspar. I remember he was pretty popular in that, and he came through for us there. I like him. 70%. Anybody that favors 70% or higher cut rate, I think that's a good play. He's kind of that player that sneakily had a decent season that not a lot of people have been turned on to, especially since he kind of did have a stretch of bad play after the Valspar there. Another one that kind of just popped on my screen here and kind of caught my eye is Joel Damon, who's kind of had a little bit of a resurgent season. He learned how to become a media darling after full swing last year, and it kind of hurt his game a little bit. And then I think now that that's kind of cooled down, I think his game has started to pick back up to where he was playing before. And I think that's another, he's another one that's had a sneakily decent season that not a lot of people have really picked up on other than the diehards like us. And I think that's another direction you could go.
Joel needs a win. Are we talking about Joel Damon or Joel Embiid, Luke? Because, sometimes it could be either or on this channel. Yeah. But I got what you're getting at there, my man. But I think that's fair stuff. Down to the 6K range, because we already mentioned Harry Higgs at 6,400, who's a solid golfer. And I think he's somebody you can consider playing. But I think it's slim pickings, but there's a few names. The better of the Cootie brothers, obviously is down here at 6,700. You could play him. Kelly Craft, I hear some people mention his name. I'm not going to take that chance there. Jason, any names down below that you like?
I'll just kind of rapid fire a couple. Alex Smalley, really good course history here. I like him. David Skins, that seems like an underpriced to me, so I'm going to be playing a good amount of him. He could get red hot with the putter, so I like that. And then Ryan Moore, good course history here. Kind of fits exactly what you would think. I think he has a win here too, but it just kind of fits exactly what you think when you think about this course.
Absolutely. Rashad, any of these cheap names down here you like?
Yeah, we'll start at 7K with Zach Johnson. Also, this is the Zach Johnson Open, so he's a good fit here. A name that popped out to me at 6,800 was Vince Whaley. It's another player that nobody's talking about. That he sneakily kind of played well when he's played this year. Harry Hall is another one that I kind of look at. Yeah, obviously Harry Higgs is another one that we talked about earlier. That looks good. And then just combing through Lanto. You can always go back to Lanto Griffin, kind of play his.
Isn't that your guy, Jason, for a while? Weren't you a Lanto?
I really did like him for a while, yeah.
You were a Lanto Griffin. What's the cool kids call it? Stan or whatever?
Yeah.
You were a Lanto Griffin Stan.
He kind of fell off a little bit over the past couple of years, but I always had a thing of when he was low owned or low priced, I always played him.
Yeah, it gets kind of greasy after that, but yeah, those guys definitely. You know, you could even go with Strillman. He's kind of played decent the last few events that he's been in as well. You know, you said Pearson Cootie, that's another one. So, you know, those are all guys I'm gonna take a look at and kind of compare their model with the Fantasy National model too. So,
all right, let's do some lineup building here, guys. You know, we've mentioned them before. Fantasy National. Make sure if you need model making or you need any golf information, head over to fantasynational.com. They're partners with the show. They got great information there. And if you sign up for any of their paid packages, just shoot them a little message. Hey, I heard about Fantasy National right there on Fairway to Heaven. We'd greatly appreciate that. Jason, it was me and Steve last week by ourselves. Steve, we both had terrible lineups. Steve beat me. So now I think that was the fourth win for guests on this show this season.
Guests have 4, I have 11, and you have 9. So we're gonna let our buddy Rashad pick first. Well, pick whatever he wants, whatever pick he wants.
I was gonna say, well,
so Rashad, would you like to go first, second, or third with the wraparound snake?
As bad as I did last time, I probably should pick the first 2, but I'll just go ahead and go first.
Okay, Rashad's gonna go first. Phil, what do you want to do?
And
I'm gonna go. I'll go third.
You're gonna go third. Okay.
All right.
Well, let me get a piece of paper here so I can.
I'm gonna lead it off with Sung Jae.
Sung Jae.
Nice.
All right. So hold on a second here. God went Sung Jae, and you are going next, Jason.
I'm gonna go next. I'm gonna go. I really don't love anybody.
I was gonna go Sung Jae with my first pick too. So you know, you really set me up for success.
Go ahead.
Right off the bat.
No, I'm gonna go Davis Thompson.
David Thompson. Okay, I like that. All right, I'm gonna go with some of these young up and comers. We're gonna start with Nick Dunlop for my first pick there,
Good.
and then we are gonna go with Clanton as well as my second one. So Dunlop and Clanton right there in the mid AKs. I'm gonna see if I can build a balanced lineup. I don't know if I can or not, but I'm gonna try.
I am gonna go. I like this guy too. We didn't talk about him, but I like him. I'm gonna go Jacob Bridgman.
All right.
So now you get to go twice there.
So I get to go twice. All right. I'm going to go high with JT Poston, who rated high for me. I don't think we talked about it much, but
You go a little slower so I can think about who I'm going to pick.
yeah. Sure. I'll take a minute. Yeah, no worries.
Oh, man.
All right. So I get 76 per. We're going to dip down this one. And I'm going to jump at Ryan Moore at 6,800.
Oh, I like that one.
I do like that too.
I'm going to go. I think this dude is going to win a tournament. Maybe not right now, but at some point, maybe in the fall. I'm going to go with Neil Shipley.
I like it.
Yeah, so I said Dunlop and Clanton, but I'm sitting here thinking in my head, I was going to take 2 of the 3, a Dunlop, Clanton, and Shipley.
What was
Shipley.
real quick, what was Rashad's second pick?
Poston.
Poston.
Yeah, so Stim, Posted, Moore. You're at Thompson, Bridgman, and Shipley. I'm at Dunlop, Clanton, and now my next 2 picks, I am going to go down to the bottom and go with Mr. Harry Higgs at 6,400. Definitely going to go there. Where's my other list here? I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but he popped a little bit. Is it Rico Hoy? Is that how you say it?
Huey?
Hoy?
Yes, that's it.
Huey? Is it Huey or Hoy?
I think it's Huey, isn't it?
Huey.
Huey?
Yeah.
Finished 6th last week. I know he missed some cuts before that, but a guy to take a chance on this week. Rico Huey. Huey. Huey, Dewey, Louie.
I'm going to pass with this pick.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick Denny.
Denny.
Nice.
So boring picking Denny.
I know.
All right. Let's see. I'm going to give you, Jason, I'm going to give you your precious time.
Good.
I'm going to go. Let's see. You know what? I'm going to go Chandler Phillips for the first one. And then we'll go back high. Let's see. You know what? Since nobody else is going to grab him, I'll go ahead and take Mark Hubbard. So at least I know I'll get a 1 of 6.
I'm just sitting here as I'm letting you guys bicker over players, testing out who I can use.
Yeah.
And I picked one person. I'm like, oh, that leaves me Mark Hubbard for my last pick.
So did I.
Well, there goes that whole plan.
I just did the same exact thing. So I'm probably about to take who you were going to pick. I'm taking Shank.
No, that's not who I was looking.
Oh,
That's who I was
Shank?
looking at for my
Okay.
last one.
Oh, yeah, he still had one. No, he's got to come back around. That's right.
so I did the same thing. I put Shank in, and then it left me with Hubbard too. I'm like, oh, sweet.
Well, hold on. Let me redo this here. Let me double check here. If I pick this person, I can't take Hubbard now. Oh man, no, I can't do it. Can't do it. I was going to take George Spieth, and then the best available after that would have been Mark Hubbard. So I can't do it. I can't do it because then after that, then I got to go with Power or Samus. I guess I could go with Hostler, but I don't know. We'll drop down a little bit.
I played Hostler way too much. I don't know why I like Hostler, but I played him a lot last week too. I don't know what my deal is.
We're going to go with Aaron Rye instead. Okay. And then I'm going to take Kevin Yu with my last pick.
That's a good one. We didn't talk much about him, but that's a good
exactly. And I like the boom bust potential there for you as well. So just to recap, my six are Dunlop, Clanton, Higgs, Huey, Dewey, Louie, Rye, and you. So Jason, your last pick.
So I'm gonna go Adam Svensson. Adam Svensson.
Looked hard at him too.
Yeah,
I had a choice.
He kicked my butt a little bit.
I was debating between him and Power. I don't know. I just have a weird bad feeling about Power.
All right.
Jason's lineup: Thompson, Bridgman, Shipley, Denny McCarthy, Schenk, and Svensson. Okay.
So I'm torn between the guy that I'm gonna play in my lineups and the guy that I kind of want to play in my lineups. So for the purposes of this, I'm gonna go with the guy that I'm kind of gonna play, and I'm gonna take Michael Thor Bjornsson since everybody else is gonna go with a young guy. I'll take 1-2.
Yeah. I do hear a lot of people actually talking about him this week.
Yeah, I used him last week and he burned me, but I'm gonna go back to him.
Someone saying Fratelli has played well at the.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only problem is he doesn't play on the PGA Tour anymore.
I was just going to say, is Dylan Fratelli even playing anymore?
He won. I'm pretty sure he won a couple years ago.
Dylan Fratelli is 158th. I didn't even know there's 158 people in this event.
Plays,
the 158th in my model.
He's on the DP World Tour now. He doesn't.
Yeah, he's playing overseas.
Yeah.
His last.
He won here though.
I pulled him up. So let's just go with Dylan Fratelli's numbers on the PGA Tour because that's what Fantasy National has. Missed cut, 56. Missed cut. He finished 56 at the Sanderson in October.
He did win here.
His last made cut. What's that?
He did win here in 2019.
Yeah.
There you go. His last made cut before that, though, was February of 2023 at the Honda. He's missed a lot of cuts on the PGA Tour.
I used to play
he did win here.
I used to play him so much in DraftKings. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I used to play him a lot.
He used to be a cut maker.
Yeah.
2020, 5th at the Masters, 2021, 5th at the Open. He's got some good numbers in major events, too.
He pops once every couple of years. That's good.
Yeah, he does.
Once every 47 years, he pops out. You got to love it, right?
He's like Cam Champ. He either misses the cut or finishes in the top 5.
Yeah. But I appreciate the comment, Luke. Sorry, we're not trying to make fun of your comment. We're just trying to have a little fun here. Real quick, one final sponsorship here before we go over our outrights and stuff like that. If you are Dylan Fratelli and you need to get back on tour, you probably need a lawyer. So give our friend David Archeri, the Cherry Law Firm, a call. Watch my face, Jason, down here. If you need, for realistically though, workers' compensation lawyer, motor vehicle accident, personal injury, or criminal law, call the best in PA. David Archeri, the Cherry Law Firm, cherryinjurylaw.com, 610-565-0300. Let him get and fight for you the best like he can. Again, 610-565-0300, cherryinjurylaw.com. For you guys, you guys aren't regulars on Trending in the AM. When I do my Cherry Law ad read in the morning, I get about 47 cherries in the comments. Literally, people just keep dropping cherry bombs in the comments. But the morning show crew doesn't watch this. They begin, and that's about it. Rashad, so do you have any bets for this week that you really like this week?
I typically don't put my bets in until Wednesday evening because I want to get the worst line possible. But normally it's just when
honestly, I talk about this all the time that people rush to get the best numbers before they have all the information on the tournament.
Yeah. No, it's true. And obviously, I have a life outside of this sometimes. So I don't always get my research done in time. I'll probably be looking in the direction of Sung Jae, Mav, McCarthy, Poston, definitely. Those guys all kind of have the best top 10 equity in my model. So obviously that I don't have a win equity line. So I kind of just take the guys that I look at a top 10. Poston was my first pick for one and done. I'll either leave it on him or move it to Sungjae. So I think Sungjae had the highest top 10 equity in my model. But those are kind of the ways I'm looking right now. And then I'll just throw some darts at the bottom of the board after that.
Jason, thoughts on the betting board this week?
Rashad's comment about having a life outside of this hurt my feelings. I don't have a life outside this. This is what I do.
Well, I'm jealous. I'm the jealous one.
You do one show a week, Jason.
I know.
I'm live for like 10 hours minimum a week on this channel.
You guys are living the life. I'm just participating.
Yeah. I don't know about that. What life are we talking about? You know?
I have a few bets. So I hate Davis Thompson. I hate that I did this, but Davis Thompson 25-1, Dunlop 35-1, Power 60, Shank 65, and Knapp 80.
I like the Knapp one. I'll probably look in that direction too.
Yeah. I already mentioned Im and Rye as my main bets. I did throw a couple pennies on Clanton at 60-1. I figured either Clanton, Shipley, or Dunlop. One of those I was going to bet this week. I went Clanton. I did bet a bunch of top 20s, and I parlayed just for shits and giggles. Throw a dart, maybe pay off my mortgage and stuff like that. Not really. But I did parlay top 20s on Sungjae Im, Mark Hubbard, Dunlop, Novak, and Phillips. It pays every $10 pays $3,200 and change on it.
Ooh.
It's not bad.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a nice little payout right there. So I parlayed those 5 top 20s together. They were the first 5 top 20 bets I made this week, each individually. So I'm like, you know what? We'll just throw a couple pennies on them. I didn't throw $10 on it, but just so you guys get an understanding of where that is. That's what I did there this week. Any final thoughts before we wrap this show up this week, Rashad, on the John Deere Classic?
No, I'm looking forward to the event. It's, I think that this, like I said, these events are great because if you can get a good pool and get most of your guys through the cut, I think you're going to have a good advantage because there's not as many casuals that play this week and kind of, all throw their money, and the ones that do play all throw their money on the names they know. So you'll kind of see the ownership pool. And I think that if you have some guys that, are low owned that you feel confident about this week, this is the good week to play on and get yourself some exposure to some guys that you don't really see that much of for future events.
Jason, any parting thoughts on this week's event?
We have to pick our one and done also.
Oh shoot, yeah, that's right, the one and dones. I mean, I'm falling further and further behind every single week. So
you had Tom Kim last week. I had Akshay, which is still pretty solid. So we'll take it. I have a almost $5 million lead at this point. So we're
basically you pick your guy, and I'm just gonna pick like a random guy, and hope he wins.
I'm going Straka this week.
All right, so I'm gonna go with. I don't even know if I've used him yet. Have I used Sungjae Im yet? I don't think I have. I'm pretty sure I didn't.
I don't think you have either.
I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna say Sungjae Im. My notes are missing right now on that. If I've used Sungjae Im, then move it down to Clanton as my secondary choice. But Sungjae Im.
No, you're good with him.
Yeah, Sungjae Im is my one and done this week. I highly doubt I'll use Sungjae Im the rest of the season. So let's just use him up this week. I do honestly think Sungjae Im has a good chance at winning this event. Real quick, it is the 4th of July on Thursday. Perfect. John Deere Tractors, 4th of July. What is on Rashad's barbecue on the 4th of July?
Woo. Oh, goodness.
I'm throwing a little curveball at you guys on a golf show.
Yeah. No, it's good. Obviously, it's 4th of July, so you got to go burgers and dogs. But I wouldn't say no to a steak if it was available.
I wouldn't say no.
But it's a burgers and dogs day. Burgers, dogs, baseball. And then obviously Thursday of the John Deere Classic. It'll be a good day.
Jason,
I'm switching it up. I'm going a little fancy. I'm going ribs.
Ooh, good call.
I love
ribs and pasta salad.
I can't cook ribs. For some reason, every time I cook ribs, I either overcook them and get them chewy or I undercook them. I just let the professionals cook the ribs because I love ribs.
Jason's going to get me in trouble if any of my Mississippi friends are watching this. The fact that I didn't say ribs and he did, so that's I may not be able to show my face in Mississippi again for a while.
You know what sucks is the biggest betting thing on the 4th of July we can't even bet on it's hot dog because Joey Chestnut isn't participating in the hot dog. Like it's literally watch the hot dog contest, then go watch Phillies baseball, and then eat for me. That's normally my 4th of July. We can't do that this year.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's going to be like this event. It's actually going to be competitive because the main guy won't be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Can't
like
wait with
Scottie
you.
Scheffler's not there, so he's got a chance. Yeah. Oh, man. All right. With that being said, guys, we're going to wrap this up. Make sure you guys hit that like button, that share button, subscribe button. Live 7-day-a-week programming right here on Edge of Philly Sports. There's 4 more shows later tonight, including post-game live and countless other great stuff on this channel tonight. I'll be back live tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. with Trending the AM. But with that, for everybody, for Jason Sullivan, for our guest Rashad, we're going to wrap it up for the day, and we will be back next week with next week's show. But everybody have a great night, and bubbles up.